Hi everyone, I'm Grant. So my original background is a Purdue electrical and mechanical engineer. So started on boots on the ground in development and hardware. Wanted to go into EVs and accidentally found myself in startups, and 3 mistakes later led to Glassboard. So here we are. We help our clients build physical goods. So this might be a medical device, it might be a coffee machine, it might be an EV. Many of them are connected, some of them are not. And the process to go from the very beginning, I have an idea and a problem to solve, to I'm on the market and there's a factory somewhere making my product is long, arduous, and not really talked about. So today we're going to walk through that. I will very much encourage anyone to yell out questions in the middle. I am not a canned speaker. There is no notes. I am doing this off the cuff. So if you guys have questions, anytime is a great time to stop me, but we'll get into it. So the one thing I wanted to talk about is if you're a venture-backed hardware startup, you're never building the production product. Like, that's not on your radar. It's not something you should ever think about. You should lie and tell all your investors that that's the only thing you're focused on. But what you're really focused on is building the next raise. You are having to go from lily pad to lily pad to jump across this pond, and it's not a straight shot. It's much more focused on what are we doing next? How are we de-risking this? So I want to walk through these 4 major steps, is what I'm calling them, in your journey to build a hardware product. And the very first step is just planning. Don't build technology here. Do not get obsessed with writing your app's prototype and doing development kits at this point. That's a little bit of wasted effort. You need to figure out what is the high-level tech I can use. More importantly, who needs it? Who's going to buy this and what problem am I solving? The next step is prototype, and do this as low fidelity as you can. Use development kits. I have some out there as examples we can go talk through later. Use maybe 3D printing, but maybe cardboard-aided design. Get low fidelity prototypes in front of stakeholders and investors early, and that's when it's going to get you that de-risk. And then you get into development, and we'll unpack that later. Development is a long and iterative journey through many stages of what's the right prototype for today versus tomorrow versus a year from now. And then that last step is make. And that's making sure you're building a supply chain that can live with you forever. When you build stuff, if one part goes out of stock, you are completely done. There is no, moving from AWS to Azure. There is retooling, there is moving product across the country or the planet, and that is a much longer timeline to meet your client's needs if you didn't build a robust supply chain. So we'll kind of get into this as we go on. So the first is plan. And I have a few do's and a few don'ts here. You want to define the product, and I got some examples in the slides after this and how we break that apart. You want to assemble the team required. So this could be all internal. This could be all external vendors like Glassboard or other partners here in the city for software and regulatory and all the rest. Or it could be a blend of those things. You're going to want to understand your tech stack you're building on and what the risks are and what the maturity level of that tech is. And lastly, build a roadmap. Timeline and how much and when and what are the milestones. What you don't do is we're not going to make a detailed task list to production, estimate every hour or every 5 minutes of every task to sum up all the time it's going to take to get this done. We're also never going to assume this plan will survive first contact. The plan is a tool, not a map. I just want to point that out. It's not the plan to take you from A to B. It is the compass that will point you in the right direction when you realize you need to pivot. And the last point is do not do this alone. You and your 3 co-founders in a basement with a bunch of coffee and Mountain Dew cranking away on a great plan probably is the way you build V0.1. Don't present that to investors or someone that you care about their opinion of you until you've gotten sanity checks in the industry. Go find friends that have either working in enterprise that are launching products every day, but more importantly, go talk to other founders that have gotten through this valley of death between an idea and production and like, hey, how crazy is this? Is this like believable crazy, or am I just going to get laughed at? And you're going to iterate this a bunch of times. So we can go on to the next slide. These next few slides are basically all things that we do in our planning phase, and I just wanted to point them out for you guys. So in product development, you want to start with user needs, then go into design inputs, then you develop stuff, you make design outputs, which are like the CAD files and the circuit boards, and then you assemble those into a product. And the reason this order matters is because user needs comes first. What does the user expect the product to do? And you start making a list. We do this in Excel. You just make numbers 1 through as many as you get to. And you'll refine this and you want to trim from it. You don't want 300 user needs. You want a testable amount of user needs. But this is all human focused. This isn't, you don't write down engineering specs here. This isn't the temperature in which the battery shouldn't explode under. This is the user expects to use it on a cold winter day in Indiana. The user expects it to use it in the middle of summer in Indiana, and things like that. And keep in mind, your users aren't just the people that are buying the product and using it. If it's a medical device, it might be the doctor, even though the patient is the one that has to use the product. The doctor might have needs of this product. Go through and put yourself into all these users' shoes and write down those needs. The next step is then translating those. It is an English to English translation, but for some of us it may be Greek. This is going into engineering specs. Hey, what's a sunny day in Indiana? How many degrees C is that? Can I get a thermal chamber that hot to test this product? Can I get it cold enough in a thermal chamber? Writing down, hey, the device should last plus or minus, X to Y, Z Celsius. If it's a heart rate monitor in the Apple Watch, I'd write down how many BPM accuracy I need over how many tests. You start defining the engineering specs because that'll let the developers know what's important and how good is good enough. Because the most dangerous thing you can do in a plan is set a goal out there and then not define it. We want to make the best smartwatch ever. Well, how good is good enough? Because some engineers might not build a product for you that is detailed or nice enough. Some engineers might spend all of your money polishing one feature until it's perfect, even though you only need it to kind of work most of the time. This is really a critical part of the plan. Going past that, design outputs are just the files you make and the end product, but verification and validation are two steps along the way, and I think when we translated this to slides or PowerPoint, the arrows left. But I can say that you verify design inputs and you validate user needs. So let's walk through this. When you're engineering your prototype circuit board and you need it to last on its battery for 6 hours, that doesn't need to be in the entire product. You can hook up all the sensors and start a stopwatch and have that test run. And you should do this along the way. You're verifying that each one of your engineering things, check, I did it. And then validating, it has to be the whole product. You need that entire product in someone's hands, getting user feedback, saying, hey, I went to a doctor's office, I set up a camera, and we got volunteers to come in and use our blood pressure cuff on each other. We recorded every time they had to go open the instructions, every time they dropped it, every time they had to go start at the beginning because they forgot to hit next step or save. These are all examples of ways that engineers won't test their own products because on their bench it worked. Why would I need to go talk to a person? But never underestimate how people will use your product creatively, and this process is fully iterative. But I want to just call it the difference between what a user needs are and what engineering specs are, and what verification is for an engineer and validation is for the product. Because most people will overlook this or conflate the two, and it makes for a very messy testing protocol. This we're not going to go through, but you should make your version of a stakeholder strategy. Here are all the major roles between now and launch. Here are all the humans assigned to those roles, or it could be companies, and start calling your shots here. Because you're going to realize the team you need is bigger than just you, bigger than your team. Even if you have all the money in the world to hire, you're going to need external vendors, you're going to need partners, you're going to need whoever that may be. Getting to know these people and who they are early in your planning stage will help you get feedback on when they should be involved. When do you need capital to pay them? And when do they bow out of the process? So this is pretty important to just run through. We can go to the next slide. The next is the fun part. This is about as detailed as your technical definition for your product should get. When we're going through working with a new client that wants us to build them their latest widget, this is about as many shapes and connecting dots we have. Hey, maybe we need to pick the sensor for the heart rate meter, right? Massimo makes great ones, and they sued Apple and won a few times and then lost a few times, and that goes back and forth. But let's say we were investigating 2 vendors for heart rate sensor. We'd identify them here, and that heart rate sensor has to talk to a CPU, which has to talk to a battery, which then has to go into a watch. But that's as about as detailed as you want to get at this stage. We're not doing CAD drawings, we're not working on writing software. We are just planning out what talks to what when. And for IoT devices or things like that, my favorite journey here is to connect the data dot. Start at one end of this and connect, hey, I'm trying to measure heart rate. Go through the sensor, goes into the processor, goes to the cell chip, goes to the cloud, goes to this service, goes to this user interface on someone else's device, and draw that whole path. And you're going to start finding vendors you need along the way to transmit that data somewhere. And if it's not a vendor, it's a piece of product or something you have to build. So that's when you start to define your product. Go to the next one. And finally, you put this into a roadmap. This is just an example, and I will say this out loud. No product ever gets done in 12 months, so I'm lying to you here with the short timeline, but it fit nicely on a slide. But it's sequential. You're going to iterate inside of all these phases, and we can walk through what some of them are later. But you need to lay out this roadmap, and then what we do when we're going through discovery is we're going to pencil in what Glassboard's estimated costs for each one of these phases are for us in these white boxes, and you should replicate this for all of your other vendors, your software vendor, your hardware vendor, your internal team. What salary spend do you have that month or that quarter in each one of these segments, and add them all up, because this is going to be the burn rate that you need. Now, no plan survives first contact, so take this number and multiply by a safety factor. If you're really unsure, I like Elon Musk's, just multiply by pi and you'll be pretty close, so 3.14. If you're working with a professional firm, 100% to 150% is about the right budget. You should be raising half again what they're asking for, have that in the bank, and that way you might finish. So we can talk about this individually afterwards in your projects, but this is something you have to have. And this roadmap lives as the first slide in all of our slide decks for all of our clients every single week when we meet with them. Now what happens is this month 12, it gets pushed out here the moment we find a delay or the next thing goes wrong. It gets pushed out here. So the plan doesn't survive for a contact. However, it is the thing at which you pivot from. If there is a critical date out there in the future that you need for a trade show or the next fundraise or some critical thing, you need to pick good, fast, or cheap of how do you fix that delay that just occurred. We're either going to cut features to bring the timeline back in, add more capital each month to fix the burn rate, or accept the timeline slip. Those are your only three options in the reality. Yelling at your engineers to do better next time probably won't result in them actually doing it any faster than they're capable of doing it. So that slide is really important. So that is planning. These next couple slides will do a little bit more high level and loose because planning is what's most important for everyone in this room. It's the stage that most of you guys are at. For prototyping, early stage before you go and do full product development, there are two prototypes that you should make. There's your functional prototype and your visual prototype, and they should never be the same. In your first version of the prototype, don't worry about making it look beautiful and be the right form factor. You just want a shoebox full of development kits and parts that does the thing. That's an excellent first prototype. But what we pitch is, then go 3D print just a visual model of that maybe IoT device or sensor that you want in the size that you dream it to be. Test that theory. Get both those things in front of users. Test, does it work? And again, my example here is EnoArmor, one of our clients. We had to test their material, their silk cocoons that we wrap in bioplastic that is replacing polystyrene. It is exactly as crazy as it sounds, and it happened to work. But the first thing we did was build functional prototypes. Hey, when we crush this, does it absorb energy better than polystyrene? And when it did, we could move on to the next step. The next one was, does anyone like this stuff? Let's get a handful of this material that may not look pretty, but is functional. Let's get it to helmet manufacturers, packaging suppliers, and so that's what we did. And the last one is, does it solve the core problem? Hey, does this material absorb impact, protect people's brains, maybe their wine bottles and shipping? And we made some very crude prototypes and proved that it actually does. We're passing helmet drop tests. We are passing shipping tests. This is all great. None of it was beautiful. These prototypes were held together with literal hot glue and hopes and dreams, but they were functional. On the flip side, you can see these photos we took. These are all fake. These helmets that have their branding on it, that have all this cool thing together, completely fake. It wasn't the one that worked. But we got to make these visual assets, whether it's true craftsmanship with paint and hand touch like we did here, or was it a 3D render we made in Keyshot? You need to use this to go have founders drive online engagement. They're never going to have raised enough money at this early stage to sell products to get revenue. And they're going to need engagement to prove to investors that, yes, someone wants to give me money for my product. So go lie. Go on the internet. Put up fake ads that go to a fake purchase page. Take their credit card number and then shred it and send them an email and say, thanks for trying. We'll launch this in 2 years. That's the amount of data you need to get. Hey, our click-through rate on our ads is XYZ, and our return on investment would have been ABC. Toph, how would that sound for you? If a Hardtech founder went into a whole fake ad campaign and showed you click-through data on someone was willing to purchase this for X dollars, does that move the needle even though they never shipped the product? Massive? Yeah, and it's things that Hardtech founders don't think about because they're too focused on building the thing. They're too focused on the engineering or the tech or delivering on that end dream and not stopping along the way, I joke, to smell the roses, but not stopping along the way to make sure other people want the thing they're building. At various stages, you'll get more and more believable. Your renders look more real, your physical mock-ups look more real, you're getting better test data. This is really important to go get people to exchange money for your idea, because that's the only thing investors care about these days. You really used to be able to raise on a pure pitch deck and a dream. Today, you have to have proof that someone's going to give you money for this so they'll get a return one day. So that is the reasons basically why you do this. Also, Toph gets really excited when you show him beautiful things, so helpful hint for all of you raising here today. Visual prototypes make him excited. I want to stop here. Does anyone have questions on how I'm describing prototyping? Again, we're not in product development yet. We're not actually building the product, but I want to make sure that this is clear.
How about form factors?
What about form factors?
What are the best ways to go about building a form factor? Is there such a thing as prototyping a form factor, cost effective ways, because it can get expensive?
Oh, for like does it fit in your hand? That form factor?
Yeah.
Yeah, so again, that's my answers. Prototype only the form factor. Don't put the electronics in it. Don't make it functional. Don't make it strong enough. Go prototype just the form factor and get feedback, run surveys or whatever you need to do, or user tests on that. And then build the shoebox full of parts that you Wizard of Oz. It's the man behind the curtains. Someone puts on the beautiful mocked up prototype, and then you ask them if they liked it, and we're collecting your heart rate data, so we'll show it to you right after we're done. Then the visual prototype comes off the wrist, like, I lied to you, I'm sorry, but thanks for the survey data. Now we're gonna strap the shoebox to your wrist and actually take your heart rate. We'll show you how accurate it is, and we'll see how you feel. And you get both responses. And that's what's important, so you're never doing it at the same time this early, because as Toph said, it's gonna be way too expensive to make it small this early.
Great. You've done a really good job of describing these functional and visual prototypes, but are they really that disconnected as you're describing it, or is there any thought to?
They should be two separate teams that don't know about each other. I'm kidding, it shouldn't be that bad. Your visual team should never pitch something that the engineering team thinks they could never deliver on. Now, you want your industrial designers to make your engineers sweat. You want them to kind of hate each other. That's about the right balance. If they're equally unhappy, you've made the right compromise. That's what you want. But you shouldn't have the person doing the visual prototype do it knowing how the engineers are going to pull it off. You need them to dream. You need them to push. You need them to create creative boundaries that, the engineers they're conservative. They want to protect themselves from pain later and late nights. They're never going to sign themselves up for anything smaller than what they think they can get away with. So these warring factions help you meet in the middle and build the optimal balance between the two. Now the nice thing is your ID team doesn't really need to be involved in your functional prototype. That truly is hot glue, zip ties, hopes and dreams at this stage. We'll talk about when we get those two teams involved to make beautiful stuff that works, and that comes later. So this is prototyping. Please grab me after this if anyone wants tips on how to prototype their thing, whether it's 3D printing or silicon casting or pick and place or all kinds of things. There's lots of ways to prototype really great stuff way cheaper than it used to be. So modern technologies have made all of our lives better because I'm not very clever or good with my hands, and I would have been an attorney if we didn't have computers and 3D printers. So we can go to the next slide. So develop. This is what everyone thinks about when they think about product development. This is what I call design, build, test, DBT, and you just repeat this ad nauseum until you launch the product. And these steps happen in sequence, and they're really important. You're going to do design, and I won't get into this. This is just engineering. Mechanical engineering, CAD, electrical engineering, Altium file layouts, embedded software or regular software development, compile and test it, and that kind of work. Build is the important part here. As you see, I'm getting a little bit farther away from the word prototype. You're not quite doing this at a factory yet, but you shouldn't just be doing this with your off-the-shelf 3D printer. You have to build these style of prototypes functionally. The plastics have to behave like they're going to do in production. The circuit board has to be about the right form factor and assembled on a pick and place line like it might be in production to make sure your part layout and your components are in the right spot. You're going to want to learn these lessons early and test subsystem by subsystem as you iterate and get better processes and better designs, and then test them together. So the build thing is really important here. This is hard prototyping to learn because not every production process is easy to replicate at low volume affordably, but there are creative ways. And then test. This is the one that no one likes. This is eating your veggies. It's healthy for you and it's good for the product, but it doesn't feel good and it takes tremendous amounts of time. I think my answer is test like you mean it. Most engineers will write a test plan so they know they're going to pass it. Because then they can move on to the next step and their bosses are happy. What you want psychopaths. You want engineers to write a test plan that's going to be hard to pass because it emulates the real world really, really well. And then you really want psycho engineers that then have a second test that they're going to run that totally destroys the product. If it's a scooter here for you and your ankle, we're going to put way more weight on that than we ever thought anyone would to find out where it breaks. We're going to, on purpose, destroy product, not just test for success. Most engineers don't do this because they spend lots of time prototyping. They're proud of their art and they want to hang it on the fridge later. We just got to put it through the meat grinder because that's where you learn all your lessons. So it's really, really important. And the last one, it only happens if you wrote it down. It's cool, otherwise it's cool story, bro. I'm glad you had a good test. It's write it down. Don't just write down the answer. Write down how you tested it, all the equipment you used, and what steps you did to test it. Because likelihood is, if the company's successful in the next phase of design build test at a later version of development, you're not the one running this test, and someone else is going to have to do it. So you might as well write it down. And the results, you want to graph over time. Are we getting stronger from our alpha prototype to our beta prototype to our design for manufacturing version to the first articles off the line? Or did we make a design change that made the beams in this vehicle, not as strong? Still acceptable, but we lost some stiffness, and make sure we accept that risk. This is all about knowledge about how things are working, not about being perfect at any given time. So this happens daily for certain parts of a product, right? Hey, I'm iterating on the curve of the mouse for the computer mouse I'm designing. I can 3D print this in an hour. I'm going to iterate over and over and over again today. We're going to iterate on a full assembly of all of the plastics in the mouse once a week. We'll integrate new electronics once a month. And we're going to do full revs of user testing every 2 to 3 months. And these cycles live within each other, and it's constant improvement, but make sure you write all your test data so the graphs go up and to the right. So that's the answer there. And the last step is make it scale. So I think this is the thing that is the scariest, and I'm going to reiterate this is the scariest. So many hardware startups get to this stage, they just don't get past it. They'll have beautiful prototypes that have been designed and built and tested-ish, and they jump into manufacturing head first. The problem is they get in bed with the wrong partner, and it's not that this partner is a bad manufacturer, it's not that this partner has any malice, it's the wrong fit for them. Sometimes startup founders are too cautious, and they go for a hyper low volume manufacturing partner that's never going to meet the cost of goods they need to do when they hit launch. And equally worse is when startup founders are too bullish and they think they're going to sell 100,000 units in the first year, and you're only working with a factory that makes 100,000 units at a time. Your tooling costs are going to be expensive, your timelines are going to be way too long, and they're never going to be nimble enough for you to move at the pace you need to move. Also, you'll disappoint them when you order 1,000 units and you'll get laughed out of the room and they'll take your tooling somewhere not nice. So find the right partner for you. This isn't about just finding quality, it's about finding the right puzzle piece that fits the plan that you're making. The next one is making things is really hard, like truly one of the more difficult parts. Designing is way easier than making. I will say that out loud. I get to do the fun stuff. These vendors you're going to work with have the hardest job. Also, they've never built your product, right? Yes, they might have built IoT products, they might have built plastic products, but yours is a unique butterfly. And they're going to have to get up to speed on how to make your product efficiently with great looks and no defects, and it's cheap enough for you. Be patient with them and make sure you plan for that, right? You've been making these parts for months and months and months. You might think it's easy when you silicone cast it in your shop or urethane cast it. How hard is injection molding? Give them some patience because this is their first time with your product. The next is the asymptote effect. This isn't linear. Getting 80% of the way done in design is the easy part. Getting 80% of the way done in manufacturing is the easy part. Going from 80% right to 100% right takes about 90% of the time and the money. So make sure as founders when you're planning on your timelines that, oh yeah, we got from our alpha to our beta completely on time and we're good. The hard stuff is coming. You better not have spent half your money yet. So keep that in mind. And the last one is testing. I just harped on this, but make sure that when you get new parts in, you test them to the same rigor you tested your prototypes to. They need to pass those same tests. You would be shocked at how many times when I think, oh, it's going to be stronger in manufacturing, less defects, all this great stuff, you find little things that don't scale to the way you were prototyping that are now different in manufacturing, and you need to make changes to your design. Not because the manufacturer did it wrong, but because something's just different than the way you used to make it. So don't ever forget to retest. Go to the next one. And so this will be the last slide of the deck, and we'll open it up for questions here. But this is my summary of a journey that we just went through. So I put it in not months, I put it in raises. This is when, going from I have $0 for this to I have 10 or 50 grand for this to I have 75 to $250,000 for this to 500K plus and 1 million plus. And my advertisement here is that these numbers are wrong, I'm lying to you, but they're about the right order of magnitude apart from each other. So if you're a med device, add a 0 to all of these things. If you are a defense contractor, add 2 zeros because the government's willing to pay you for it. And for all you IoT guys, just double it or give it to the next guy or something. But really, think about it in this scale. When you have an idea, it's free to go talk to people, do discovery, talk to clients, make a plan, internally build your team. That is free. That's what you have to get done. And to move on to that next step, you have to know what your product is, and you have to know who's buying it and for about how much. Now, it's never right, but you need a place to start. From there, you go raise either your own bootstrap money that you're putting in, friends and family round, whatever you want to call your first dollars. And you don't use any of those dollars for engineering. Please stop. Don't go make things. Don't go 3D print things. Go make a plan. Go socialize that plan with vendors. So we do this for all of our clients that are business people that have a hard tech idea. They come to us and we help them make that plan for hardware and engineering. I don't care if it's me or anyone else that's an expert in the space, work with someone to troubleshoot and pressure test your plan. Go through that whole planning stage, and you'll likely need more than one vendor and make sure they're all aligned because you want teams that work together. Then you get to go as a pre-seed. So I'm going to pause here because Elevate does lots of pre-seed work. Jacob, am I on par here for what you want to see when you're doing pre-seed?
So far, so good.
So far, okay, good. $20 for you later as well. Good. It's getting expensive for me. This is the next critical phase, is prototype. You don't want to go to a firm that's going straight to build the product, or an engineering team that you've hired in as full-time staff that's going to go straight to the end product. Make sure they know the goals of this step. I've harped on it today, and I'm just repeating it because it makes people listen. This is important. You're only building the thing that gives Jacob the ability to give you more money later. That's the only thing you're worried about at this stage. And repeat that again. Develop, same thing. Now you're raising, you have to exit your seed to get and develop, and then make. This is where it gets weird. I have less data because there's so much variance. Some people cash flow it from here in Hardtech because Hardtech's a very cash flowable business. If you go into Series B, now you're blowing it up. You're getting lots of inventory on the shelf so you can blow up sales and marketing and sell out tomorrow and keep running. Or hopefully, this is actually the only point where I see Hardtech companies exit. There's been a couple here in Indy that have exited in the last couple of years, mostly in the drone space, early. But really, you're going to be in the make and scale phase when you get bought. Hardtech is so risky, and it takes so much execution excellence to make someone a return on investment. That's when you get your exit. You have to be making money. You don't have to be quite profitable yet, but you have to be making revenue and cash flowing your inventory through that to be able to get purchased in Hardtech. No one buys an idea. Very few people buy prototypes. And most people buy operating companies that they think they can fix that one thing that is keeping you from profitability. So that's the end of the presentation. Love to open this for questions.
At what stage in that last slide would you have said you should have pre-orders?
Oh, pre-orders? Do you want? So let's talk about pre-orders. This is like Kickstarters and pre-orders is really hot in Hardtech, and it's a really messy space. And I think this will answer your question. If you're going to run a pre-order campaign, what you have to do is be honest with everyone that you're advertising to. And if you're at the prototype stage and you're running a Kickstarter, you're probably too early because you are 2 years away from delivering that product to somebody. Right? It'll take you about a year to engineer it and about a year to make it at volume. And if you're doing pre-orders online, same thing, not just Kickstarters. But what I like to see companies do is go do it under a different brand name, make a fake brand so you're not poisoning the well, and go put fake ads out for your product from a render and take them to a purchase page and have them put in a credit card number and then just shred it and say, hey, thank you so much for meeting interest. We're at the very early stages collecting market feedback. Just tell them exactly why you wasted their time and then send them a code for 25% off when we go to market if you remember to follow up with us and put them on your mailing list. That's how you should get feedback here because you're a little early for pre-orders. Pre-orders are excellent. If you want to go back a slide, Mohammed, pre-orders are excellent towards the middle or end of develop. When you're starting to talk to manufacturers, starting to cut tooling, and right before you cut that tooling, you need to know how much you need to make, that's when you go Kickstarter because you are less than a year from being able to get some amount of product on someone's shelf. So does that help answer that question?
Yeah, so the burn credit card should be like where on this?
Prototype. So once you get visual prototypes or physical prototypes together, you should start making sure you're getting market feedback. Some people are able to do it in plan. Their internal team is good enough at marketing and they have enough ability to not have to pay someone to build a website and ad campaign. They can do it in the plan stage, but most of the people I work with will do this in prototype. And again, these titles were made up by me last night at about 11 p.m., so this is not a universal language. Anyone else got questions? Oh, we got one over here. Oh, he's hunting.
Maybe I missed it, but you didn't talk about IP and protection of IP and any patent infringement research ahead of time.
Well, that's because I was raised by an attorney, therefore I don't like them. IP law in the United States is horrific and awful and really messy. Freedom to operate searches you used to have to pay attorneys to do. ChatGPT does a phenomenal job of getting it out of the way early. And really, unless you are inventing a novel new thing, like truly novel, and I would say in my decade of doing this, I've had 4 or 5 people have anything novel come to my doors. Everything else is just practice of the art of engineering. Most things you should go get a patent because Elevate's going to want to see that you have one. It will be a design patent, and I will be able to design around that in about 5 minutes. So patents for me are a thing that used to be very powerful. It's an incredibly crowded space. Unless you have a utility patent that is like the next generation magic, worry about IP a little bit later, because if you were, and you go back to the previous slide, we'll just leave it on that one. If you worry about IP, an idea, plan, or prototype, you're doing it too early. Everything that you're going to learn and develop is going to make that patent invalid completely. So don't do it. Do it under trade secret. Do work under NDA. Trust your partners. If you get screwed, it happens. It's still cheaper than paying attorneys too early. I get too many startups that come to me and have blown their entire pre-seed round on IP. And they're like, cool, I need you to develop my product for 25 grand. I'm like, you need to go and raise a round and probably just crater the first company and let's just Phoenix it and start again. Because they've burned all their capital and their cap table on IP before it's even useful. So that's my theory on it. Now the flip side is if you have utility, get a great patent attorney, and it's counterintuitive. The best patents I've ever read are the least descriptive patents I've ever read. Every engineer, when they write their first patent, writes a novel about this beautiful thing that they built, and by 3mm fillets on the edge is the perfect thing for the person to feel. And I love those patents because I get to go in and you're like 3.5 millimeters, that's it. My new client can go copy you for $0. We got this. And you just publish the recipe. So be very, very careful what you patent because people like me have used it all of the time. Any other questions?
Hey, so my apologies, I came in a little bit late.
All good.
I've already covered this, but when it comes to like what a client or a potential person who's buying this product finds important, how do you kind of separate yourself from what your field is and what obviously probably your field probably goes into what you're designing and developing, and really deciding and determining what is important for some random person that doesn't have any of that experience?
Yeah, like end user experience?
Yeah, how do you kind of separate yourself from that, your specialty versus what everyone else can use it for?
So let me refine that. Is that how does people at Glassboard who are in product development do that, or how should a founder look at that question?
Someone that comes up with a cool idea that just,
Yep.
hey, run with it, whatever happens.
Yeah.
How do you relevate that to everyone else that doesn't have the experience and the
Yeah. So
expertise that you do?
how does a founder figure out if the Kool-Aid they've mixed for their cult is tasty to everyone or just people that are already in the building? I think that's the analogy. You talk to people. You do user studies, you do discovery work, and you find people who are your ideal customer persona, and then you go about 5 degrees left and right of that. Because most of the time we suck at figuring out who's going to buy this the first time. We have some biases that we all want to get over, and we're bad at it because we're humans. So you just go talk to a lot of people, and again, just go back to testing. Don't just talk to those people, please, for the love of God, write it down. There's AI note takers that you can follow you to every meeting, have all that data plugged into one big LLM, and ask the LLM, how many people liked this product honestly? What was the sentiment? What was the demographic of the people, how they described themselves, who really liked the product? It used to be much harder to do this. You had to have people that would do your discovery work, take copious notes, plug all that into a spreadsheet that someone typed the wrong formula number into, and you end up going for the wrong ICP. But today with LLMs, record everything, document it all, and go make sure you're pulling the right analytics out. But do it early, because conversations are free if you know who to ask and how to ask.
Okay, one more question here.
So I'll let you pick, Jay.
What we're gonna tell.
Hi, when is it too early to actually purchase your molding and tooling?
Oh, that's a great question. When is it too early to purchase your tooling and molding? My best answer for that is if you haven't been able to pass validation and verification testing, you should not be purchasing tooling. Unless your timelines are everything to you and your burn rate, like let's say the company's really big and you need to get this product out because your payroll every month is crazy big, maybe it's worth the risk to cut tooling that's wrong. But for 99% of venture-backed startups, you can be patient. Your payroll's really tiny. You want to make sure you're right before you go write that check. So your engineer should have that your prototypes work. They do everything you want them to do and more. Or maybe you can't prototype the material that you're injection molding that's super strong. You should have a very good justification as to why they think that's true, and know that the second the first part comes out of that mold, it's going in that one test that all your prototypes failed. So that would be my answer.
Cool. Grant, we have one more comment here.
Awesome.
And really just a comment. I wish I would have seen this presentation 12 years ago. I'd have a lot more hair and I'd have a lot less ink, so well done.
No, thank you. And it's funny, we worked with you. Randy Parmerly brought you guys in as one of Glassboard's very first clients, and we were younger and dumber then, and I also wish I could have given you this presentation 12 years ago. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you guys, and I'll be around all day, so feel free to grab me.